When Lewis Hamilton joined Ferrari in 2025, the move was celebrated as one of the most iconic moments in modern Formula One. The seven-time world champion, after more than a decade with Mercedes, was stepping into the scarlet-red cockpit that represents both the history and mythology of the sport. It was supposed to be a fairy tale, Hamilton, the legend, taking Ferrari back to glory. But reality in Formula One is rarely so straightforward. From the very first tests of the season, whispers began to emerge in the paddock. Hamilton and Leclerc were not driving the same car. Fans, journalists, and even some insiders suggested that there must be something different about the machines the two Ferrari drivers were given. After all, Leclerc seemed to be at ease, extracting lap times with consistency, while Hamilton looked unsettled, still searching for rhythm. But here lies the truth. Both Hamilton and Leclerc drive the same Ferrari SF25. The chassis, the power unit, and the aerodynamics are identical. In modern Formula One, it is impossible for a team to deliberately supply two different car specifications to its full-time drivers. Regulations and transparency between garages simply wouldn't allow it. So why does the perception exist that Hamilton is driving a different car from his teammate? The answer lies in three key areas: adaptation, configuration, and relative performance. Hamilton built much of his career around cars that were stable, predictable, and forgiving at the rear. The Mercedes of the hybrid era, particularly between 2014 and 2021, was designed around those characteristics. It gave Hamilton the platform to exploit his strengths: precise braking, delicate tire management, and masterful consistency over long stints. The Ferrari SF25, however, is cut from a different cloth. It is a car with a tendency to oversteer, with a rear end that can snap if not handled delicately. It requires a style of driving that embraces instability, where a driver dances with the throttle to keep the car balanced mid-corner. This is exactly the type of challenge Charles Leclerc thrives on. Throughout his career, the Monégasque has shown brilliance in cars that are sharp, even nervous, and that demand instinctive corrections. For Hamilton, however, the Ferrari was like stepping into unfamiliar territory. The British driver admitted in several interviews that he had to change fundamental aspects of his approach to adapt. "This car drives in a completely different way," he said after an early race. "I've had to relearn braking points, how to release the throttle, even how to manage traction." Such candid comments gave fuel to speculation. If Hamilton feels like he's driving something completely different, maybe he really is. But the second layer of this perception comes from personal configurations. In Formula One, even though both drivers have the same technical package, each can tailor the car to their taste within the limits of the regulations. This includes everything from suspension stiffness and ride height to brake balance and energy deployment. In Hamilton's case, one of the most visible changes was the steering wheel. He requested Ferrari to reorganize the layout of buttons and displays to resemble what he had used for years at Mercedes. The DRS button was moved to a position that matched his muscle memory, the pit lane speed limiter was relocated, and the digital dashboard was customized to look more familiar. To outsiders, this cockpit already looked very different from Leclerc's, reinforcing the illusion of different machinery. On top of that, Hamilton and Leclerc naturally choose very different setups. Where Leclerc opts for aggressive rear-end behavior to rotate the car quickly through corners, Hamilton seeks stability, sometimes sacrificing a touch of peak performance to ensure predictability. Even though the two cars are mechanically identical, these diverging setups create vastly different experiences on track. From a viewer's perspective, the way Hamilton's car behaves compared to Leclerc's can feel like watching two different machines in action. The third element feeding this perception is performance disparity. Leclerc, having driven Ferraris with similar traits for years, adapts almost instantly and extracts maximum performance. He appears comfortable, consistent, and confident. Hamilton, meanwhile, has found himself in a transitional phase, not always fast enough in qualifying, occasionally struggling with race pace, and sometimes making uncharacteristic mistakes. After one disappointing qualifying session, he even went as far as to say, "I was useless out there today." When one driver thrives and the other struggles, the human instinct is to look for explanations beyond individual adaptation. The easiest one is to say, they must be driving different cars. Psychology also plays a part. Hamilton is unusually open about his struggles, something rare among elite athletes. He is brutally honest, sometimes self-critical, and doesn't shy away from exposing his challenges. Leclerc, on the other hand, tends to be more reserved in public, choosing his words carefully and rarely revealing too much about his discomforts. The contrast in communication amplifies the illusion. Hamilton sounds like a man driving a car at odds with him, while Leclerc sounds like someone in sync with his machine. The reality, however, is much more mundane. Formula One is a sport where millimeters in setup and split seconds in decision-making make all the difference. A slightly different suspension adjustment can transform a car's handling. A shift in energy deployment strategy can make the car look stronger on straights but weaker in corner exits. For the outside world, it may seem like different cars, but it's only different interpretations of the same platform. Ferrari's management has been quick to clarify this. Team principal Fred Vasseur repeatedly emphasized that Hamilton and Leclerc have identical equipment, identical updates, and identical support. He argued that adaptation is a natural process and that Hamilton's experience will eventually benefit the team. Leclerc himself echoed this, noting that their driving styles are actually not so far apart and could help Ferrari develop the car in a direction that works for both. Yet, Ferrari is Ferrari. The weight of expectation is heavier here than anywhere else. Fans, media, and even the Italian press have little patience. Every weekend Hamilton spends behind Leclerc fuels the narrative of unequal cars. A legend like Hamilton is not expected to take time, he's expected to deliver immediately. And when that doesn't happen, myths are born. History, though, teaches us patience. Michael Schumacher didn't instantly dominate with Ferrari. It took years of painful development. Fernando Alonso, despite his brilliance, never found the magic formula at Maranello. Adapting to Ferrari is not just about driving, it's about embracing a culture, a car philosophy, and a relentless pressure that crushes weaker minds. Hamilton, with all his experience, knows this. That's why he remains calm, working step by step, insisting that the breakthrough will come. The narrative that he is driving a different car will likely persist as long as the performance gap remains. It is easier to explain struggles through conspiracy than through the slow grind of adaptation. But ultimately, it is the stopwatch that tells the truth in Formula One. If Hamilton begins to match or even beat Leclerc in certain weekends, this talk will fade into background noise. If not, the myth of the different cars could solidify as a symbolic explanation for a partnership that never reached its promise. For now, the reality is clear. Hamilton and Leclerc drive the same Ferrari. What separates them is not the machinery but the way they extract its potential. Hamilton is on a journey of rediscovery, learning how to dance with a car that demands a